On this episode of the Always Go Big Interview podcast, I have the opportunity to interview a rising superstar, Dana Doswell, who created a company from her nickname, Dozzy. It's called Dozzy Inc. I don't know why every time I say the word Dozzy, I have this like fake Australian accent. She'll tell you about mindset development. Mindset development for her was doing 60 videos in 60 days. And on the third day, she had 15 sales calls. Hey, you, come here. How would you like to get 15 sales calls after a third video? Well, watch the Always Go Big Interview podcast to find out with Dana Doswell as our guest. You are watching the Always Go Big Interview podcast. It's an interview with those who have big dreams. My name is Troy Ritchie, and I'm a future filmmaker with enormous aspirations. Join me in receiving inspiration from some of the most influential people with big dreams of their own. Learn how to overcome negative self-talk, remain focused, and accomplish everything you've ever dreamed possible by their example. If you ever wanted to be a part of someone before they broke big, now's your chance on the Always Go Big Interview podcast. Well, welcome everyone to the next episode of the Always Go Big Interview podcast. We have a special guest, Dana Doswell. How are you, Dana?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I was really looking forward to this.
Well, like I said in the prep, I've seen your content come through my feed. And at first I thought, oh, who's this? And then I see the comments and the likes and the reshares keep growing and growing and growing. And I'm like, okay, I need to find out what's going on. So I just wanted to find out a little bit, like, when did you start thinking I need to do video?
So it was actually pretty much right around Christmas of 2019. I had just started my business, Dozzy Inc. And I was coming back from Mexico. I was in Canada, and I really started investigating LinkedIn because I started to get some messages on it from kind of my target audience without really doing anything. And so that was really interesting to me because you don't see that happening, really on channels like Instagram or Facebook as much because they're so oversaturated. So I started to do a little bit more research, and then starting January 1st, I committed to doing 60 videos in 60 days. Just to force myself to do it, and also to improve my Spanish because I've been learning Spanish for a couple years, and I wanted to do a combination of English and Spanish videos to just put myself out there because I knew that's what I needed to do.
That is incredible. And then there's a little bit of an accent. So where are you from?
I'm from Toronto in Canada, but the accent that you might be hearing is because I lived on the East Coast of Canada for about 5 years. Okay. So I have a little bit of this kind of like East Coast kind of thing.
There you go.
Goes on,
yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. But now you're not in Canada right now, though.
No, right now I'm living in a place in Mexico. It's called Merida. Everybody knows Cancun, so it's pretty close to Cancun.
Okay.
And once this whole pandemic situation passes, I have plans to move to Medellin in Colombia.
Oh, I've watched a lot about that area on Netflix. Netflix.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. So you started to do videos. So this is fascinating to me. I've been doing videos since 2018, and you just started. When did you realize, as you were starting to do the video in around the Christmas time, when did you realize, wow, this is a real valuable part of delivering content? When was that like boom moment, I call it?
Well, I think that, like, for me, there's really two parts to it. So for me, I'm a really big believer in mindset development. And I think doing things like that shows to yourself that you are, a hard worker and that you're able to actually produce something valuable. And I think that adds to your ability to do better in every single aspect of your life. So I think that was a really big initial realization. And then I remember after I think my third or fourth video, I ended up booking 15 sales calls from it.
Wow.
Which was just crazy. And I think a big part of that was that I was talking in Spanish, and I don't look like I would be a Spanish speaker. And another thing that I have realized is, people coming from North America into the Latin American market, learning Spanish and really dedicating themselves to it, specifically to do business with Latin America, is not that common. And so that stood out a lot on LinkedIn as me, you know, not only just talking in Spanish, but specifically talking about doing business between Latin America and North America. And then booking those 15 calls and, you know, directly accessing CEOs of major companies across Latin America was just a massive paradigm shift for me in that moment. And then I've just been, I don't know if hooked is the right word, but I'm bought in ever since that moment.
That is incredible. So people that are watching this, I would imagine, are going, how do I do that? Do you offer services? I know you offer services, and we'll talk about it at the end as well with Dozzy. But have you ever thought of like helping individuals do what you're doing in relation to the content? Has that ever been a thought?
Yeah, and actually, so kind of a bit of how I got started was focusing on digital consulting. And what myself and my business partner realized after a little while is that 9 times out of 10, it turned into digital skill development. Because specifically when you're working with other entrepreneurs or even CEOs and business owners, there's only so much you can do for them. And you actually have to be more a vehicle of knowledge that empowers them to take the action and create the content. So that's a really big part of what I do right now. And both for clients in North America as well as Latin America, the first thing that I always do with them is a personal branding session where we go in, we identify what their value proposition is. We identify 3 to 4 key areas of expertise, or what I call pillars of proof. And this allows them, you know, kind of a mindset map that they can use to start pulling content, which usually they're already creating by just having the conversations they're having in their day-to-day lives. And so that's definitely a huge part of what I do, and I love it. A big realization for me was that I like working one-on-one with people. I'm not somebody that's going to maybe go work with an entire marketing department at a Fortune 500 company, but I would love to work with the director or VP of marketing one-on-one, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then as far as like when I do notice in your videos, you're following the example of a lot of the content creators, the same thing that I'm following, is that you're not selling in your videos, and they're short and they're providing value to the listeners. So anyone who's watching this, understand that, you know, all the videos, the 60 videos in 60 days, those aren't commercials. You know, you're giving free insight into something valuable. And by that, 15 folks are like reaching out to you. And then I would imagine, has that impacted revenue yet?
Absolutely. And another thing that I started doing that is extremely related to content was every Sunday I've started doing a free lesson for English for Business. And it's something that I talk about all the time in my videos on LinkedIn. And that's been a really good indicator that people are watching all the way through, because I don't talk about it in my caption or anything like that. And I'll say, you know, hey, this week, for example, this coming Sunday, we're talking about the mental health industry and how how mental health is related to unemployment. And we're doing this all in English. And so that combination of offering this free lesson along with actually talking about it and adding value in my content, you know, I'm going to be running my 3rd version of a course specifically for Latin American executives coming up in July. And I've had a full course for the last 2 months. And that's been literally through no outbound selling techniques whatsoever. It's been
awesome.
Inbound.
Yeah. It's so true. I am an anti-sales pitch. In fact, anyone that sends me a connection request, if they immediately follow with a pitch, I remove the connection. And I send them a little video that says, here is the proper way to engage and connect on LinkedIn. How about now, you start, you know, you have the thought, you stumble on LinkedIn or whatever in late 2019. You have the thought, and you first pick up your, I'm assuming, phone, or do you have a nice camera, or how do you record your videos?
Everything's just with my phone.
Phone, okay. So in your first video, what were some of the negative thoughts that you had, and then how did you overcome them?
So for me, one of the first videos I did was in Spanish. So for me, the initial thought was just the language barrier. And I still, obviously, I cannot communicate what I want to say the exact same way in Spanish as I can in English, because I'm still translating everything.
Sure.
So that was a big mental block, to just say, like, who am I to even, you know, be publishing content, let alone in another language. But I think the other aspect of it as well is, like, I'm a really big Gary Vee follower, really big Gary Vee fan. And well, you know, one of the things he said really stuck with me was, like, the production quality is something that a lot of people get hung up on.
Yeah.
And, you know, my first couple of videos didn't have subtitles or anything like that. And so I was really worried that people are just going to see this random person talking and not be interested, or is kind of that, you know, imposter syndrome, like who am I to publish this and think that people are going to listen to me. So to get over that, that was why I publicly dedicated myself to 60 videos in 60 days. Because I think that the biggest thing that I realized, and this goes for content creation or business in general, is that if you are consistent, you will beat out 99% of human beings on planet Earth.
That's right.
Purely by being consistent. And so I realized that also by being consistent, I would turn myself into somebody worth listening to, because I'd be learning that entire time. And that was really how I got over that mental block. And that's still something I work towards every time. But the more I do it, the more I'm able to understand how it can actually help people.
You know, and you also said that it's mindset training, which I've never really heard of that. But I follow the same. I wake up at 4 a.m. And I take cold showers, and there's really no like need to do those things. It's just, what I believe is that the way that we find fulfillment is through winning. You played hockey for how many years?
12 years.
12 years. And winning's important. It's fun. And so how do you win as a 49-year-old man, right? As an employee or whatnot? You do things that you control. And there's not a lot of things that we completely control. And so waking up and going to bed at a certain time and stuff like that. But I like how you described it as it's also mindset training, because you've got the thought and then the action behind it, right? The thought is irrelevant. I think there's a website called 1001ideas.com where it's all these entrepreneurial ideas that mean nothing without execution and so forth. So I'm going to steal that from you, if you don't mind. That mindset training is a great way to put it. Now, how about, and you know, we're June of 2020, so I can understand if you don't have some examples, but can you provide real life success stories from people, maybe some of the CEOs that you've worked with who have followed your advice, and then they became not successful, but they achieved something that maybe they wouldn't have?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, something that happened yesterday. So a guy that took one of my courses, so he is from Colombia, he's learning how to sell in English. He actually connected with me. He was one of the first people to reach out to me when I first started doing content creation. We had a couple calls. There was like a lot of alignment. He eventually ended up taking one of my courses. So that was kind of like number one, like that was purely organic. But then beyond that, he just finished one of my courses, and he was able to secure a meeting with an executive level, with a person at the executive level at a major sports company in Canada. I can't say the name, but that happened the other day. And like that's difficult. Like that is not easy. And specifically when it's in your second language, I think that's, you know, something to celebrate even more. So that was awesome. He sent me a message and was like, hey, like I used, you know, exactly what we talked about. We have our first call set up. And it's looking really promising already, like the feedback that I'm getting from him, and he's bringing his team onto the call. So that was really cool. And if that goes through, like that could potentially be like, I think, you know, like 700 to 900,000 deal for them. So
that's awesome. Very, very cool. Yeah. And then how about like other content creators? I mean, have you seen with your videos and engagement, have you seen a steady uptick and a climb?
Yeah, definitely. And something that's been interesting for me was I went up because I was really starting at the beginning, you know, like this kind of combination of Spanish and English. Then I switched to mostly English for a little while. And then I've started connecting with a lot of people that just speak Spanish. So since doing that, I've also seen a really big uptick, because no matter what language I'm speaking in, I'll always add the subtitles in the opposite language. Awesome. And something else that I think has helped me a lot is Spanglish. So kind of this combination between Spanish and English is really popular. And I think it's really popular in a lot of different languages too, when you're able to like handle two languages, so you can start talking in one, finish your sentence in the next one. It's just kind of like a cool thing that people are attracted to. And so I've been able to do that in a lot of my videos, and I've definitely seen, you know, like a big increase in engagement as a result of that. and people commenting on, you know, the phrases that I'm using and things like that.
That is so interesting. So when I watch a movie, I'm a big movie guy. When I watch a movie, and they're Spanish speaking, and when they flip flop, that's actually, because sometimes I'll think to myself, why would they do that? What you're saying is that's an actual thing where they're going back and forth from Spanish to English.
For
Wow.
example, so the word feedback in Spanish is retroalimentación. It's like a massive word, and it's just super unnecessary. So even people that don't speak English use the word feedback. So they'll be like, can you give me feedback? Or in Spanish, me puedes dar feedback. So it's like, yeah, and I was so taken aback by that, and I'm over here trying to use this fancy Spanish word, and they're like, no, we just say feedback, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, do you fit in well? You kind of could pass as someone that is Spanish. Do you find that when you're there?
It depends on which part of Latin America I'm in. So, for example, I'm in Mexico right now. I'm about 1.5 feet taller than every single person here. So, no, here I definitely stand out a lot.
Yeah.
But for example, I was in Argentina last year. I have a couple friends that live there, and Argentina is kind of they have a lot of German and Italian influence there.
Okay.
And their people are a lot taller, so I fit in a lot more when I'm there. But kind of like Central and Latin America, I stand out quite a bit.
Sure. And then as far as I'll ask this question, then we'll get into kind of if people want to get a hold of you for what the work you do, we'll talk about that. Your community, share a little bit about the community aspect of what you do.
Yes. So my mom is literally my best friend.
Awesome.
Yes. So I talk to her almost every single day. I have a younger sister who is literally the kindest person that I've ever met. And so I talk to her all the time. I have a best friend that lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And then I have 2 business partners that I talk to every day as well. So cool. Those are kind of like my core group. I've never been the kind of person that has, you know, like a friend group of 12 close friends. Like I have people from kind of all over the world. Honestly, I've been able to travel a lot. So that's kind of my tribe. And then through the students and the CEOs that I'm working with, I'm definitely starting to develop a lot of friendships there, which is really cool as well, because it's in Spanish, and I'm seeing how friendship is a little bit different in this part of the world. But those are kind of like my core people.
Awesome. Very important to keep that community element. So great example, family first and that sort of thing. So let's say someone's watching this and they are interested in reaching out to you. What are you looking for in a good fit for helping them?
For people in North America, if you are a company that has over 5 people and you need digital training or you need digital skill development, things like how to use social media, how to use the right technology in your business, how to do virtual sales. Those are all things that I provide digital skill development for. And I also have an amazing team that's more on the technology side. So digital skill development is a really, really big core area. And I'm a big believer in the training aspect of it so that these people can then understand and apply it to their own lives. Yeah.
So you're not offering it as a service per se. You're teaching them how to do it so they can then do it on their own, kind of thing.
Yeah, the way that I offer it, and I really hate the term coaching because it's so overused now, but it's the initial training aspect, and then I always do at least 6 to 8 months of, I'll just call it accountability partner. So after we do the training, we're going to set specific goals, because what I found is before I did that, and then people stopped doing it. So after that, we're going to have, specific metrics that you need to be hitting on a monthly basis, and then that gives you the opportunity to tweak it. After about the 6 to 8 month mark, most people get it and they can keep doing it. It's a habit. It's in their life now. And then usually the relationship from there changes or whatever it ends up being.
I love that because it's probably not as like they're saving money because it's more of an accountability check-in as opposed to you being a part of that team. And then, so how often do you check in with that accountability?
So usually for the first 3 months, it's twice a month as the minimum. Some people it's once a week. Obviously, a lot of that depends on their budget and how serious they take it. And then after the 6 month mark, then it's once a month.
I love it. That's really cool. So for people to get a hold of you, what's the best way? I know you've got your website, DozzyInc.com. What are some other ways to get a hold of you?
So the number one best way is WhatsApp. That's just a direct line to me. I talk a lot through audio messages, which is I love doing that. So if you're comfortable doing that, feel free to reach out to me that way. Besides that, my email as well. Obviously, I check that every day. So please feel free to reach out to me there.
I will include all that information. Thank you so much for your time. And Dana, always remember that in business and in life, never go small, always go big. Thank you for being a guest.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.